The thunder of hooves and gunfire erupted across the dusty main street of Redemption Creek, as Sophia Reid, wanted in 3 territories, fired over her shoulder at the posse closing in. She hadn't planned on riding through this forgotten corner of Arizona territory in 1878, but desperation had a way of choosing paths for folks who'd run out of options. Samuel, Sunset, Hayes watched the commotion from the porch of the general store, his worn boots propped on the railing, hat tipped low over his eyes. Most men would have stepped inside when bullets started flying, but Sam had seen enough trouble in his 32 years to know when to move and when to stay put. Right now, watching this woman outride 4 men while shooting backward from a galloping horse told him she wasn't just running, she was something special. "That's the Reid woman," shouted Sheriff Tanner, huffing as he ran up beside Sam. "$500 reward. You gonna help us catch her, Hayes, or just sit there like you own the place?" Sam didn't answer immediately, just watched as the woman disappeared into the narrow canyon west of town, her pursuers falling hopelessly behind. "Reckon she's caught herself," Sam finally said, standing up slowly. "That canyon only leads to the old Sullivan mine. Dead end." Sheriff Tanner's face broke into a yellowed grin. "Then we got her. Round up some men. We'll head out at sundown." Sam nodded, but as the sheriff hurried away, he slipped around the back of the store and untied his chestnut stallion. Something about the woman's riding, the way she handled herself, had caught his interest. And Sam Hayes hadn't survived this long by ignoring his instincts. The canyon was bathed in amber light when Sam found her. She'd hidden her horse well, but he'd tracked better than most bounty hunters. When he dismounted and approached the small cave where she'd taken shelter, he wasn't surprised to find himself staring down the barrel of a Colt revolver. "That's close enough, mister," she said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion evident in her eyes. Sam held up his hand slowly. "Not here for any reward, madam." "Then why are you here?" Her green eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Figured you might need help. Sheriff's gathering men to come after you at nightfall." He gestured toward the mouth of the canyon. "And you're right about being trapped." She didn't lower the gun. "Why would you help me? You don't know me." "I know enough," Sam replied. "I know those men chasing you are Harlan Blackwood's hired guns, not lawmen. I know Blackwood's the kind of man who frames innocent folks when they get in his way. And I know that canyon has another exit if you know where to look." Sophia's gun hand wavered slightly. "How do you know about Blackwood? He and I have history." Sam's voice hardened. "Bad history." For a long moment she studied him, her gaze intense enough that Sam felt as though she was searching his very soul. Finally, she lowered the gun. "I'm Sophia Reid, Sam Hayes." He tipped his hat. "Some call me Sunset. Because of the hair?" she asked, nodding at his auburn locks. A small smile crossed his weathered face. "Because anyone who crosses me tends not to see another sunrise." Instead of fear, something like appreciation flickered in her eyes. "Well, Mr. Hayes, if you know a way out of this canyon, I'd be much obliged if you'd show me before those men arrive." Sam led her through a narrow crevice hidden behind a cluster of boulders. The passage was barely wide enough for their horses, but it eventually opened into a secluded valley that few knew existed. As they made camp for the night, Sophia gradually revealed pieces of her story. She'd been a schoolteacher in Colorado until Harlan Blackwood decided he wanted her land for a railroad spur. When she refused to sell, evidence mysteriously appeared connecting her to a stagecoach robbery. With a corrupt judge in Blackwood's pocket, she'd fled rather than face a rigged trial and certain hanging. "Been running for 8 months now," she said, staring into the small, smokeless fire Sam had built. "Blackwood's men are persistent." "Men like Blackwood usually are," Sam replied. They're used to taking what they want. And what about you, Mr. Hayes? What do you want? Sam considered the question. Peace, I suppose. Tried ranching up north, but the winters were too harsh. Been drifting since, taking odd jobs. Is that what I am, an odd job? The corner of Sam's mouth twitched. You're definitely odd, madam, but not a job. For the first time, he saw her smile, a genuine one that transformed her face and made the exhaustion momentarily disappear. Something shifted in Sam's chest, a feeling he thought he'd buried years ago. We should reach my cabin tomorrow, he said, changing the subject. You can lay low there while I figure out how to deal with Blackwood's men. Your cabin. You said you were drifting. Even drifters need somewhere to return to. The next morning, they rode through pine-covered hills until they reached a small cabin nestled against a cliff face. It wasn't much, a single room with a stone fireplace, a narrow bed, a table with 2 chairs, and shelves lined with books that surprised Sophia. You read Emerson? She asked, running her fingers along the leather spine of a well-worn volume. Man needs something to do during long winter nights, Sam replied, slightly embarrassed. You continue to surprise me, Mr. Hayes. Sam, he corrected. If you're going to be staying here, might as well use my name. Sam, she repeated, testing it. And I'm Sophia. For 3 days, they settled into an uneasy routine. Sam hunted and checked his trap lines while Sophia kept the cabin, reading his books and occasionally offering critiques of his housekeeping that he pretended to resent but secretly appreciated. At night, he slept on a bedroll by the fire while she took the bed, both of them aware of the impropriety but having few alternatives. On the 4th day, Sam returned from town with news. Blackwood's men are still searching, but they're focusing on the trails north. Figure you're heading to Canada. He set down a package on the table. Got you some things, proper clothes, some writing paper. Thought you might want to send word to family, let them know you're alive. Sophia unwrapped the package, her hands trembling slightly. I don't have family, not anymore. She looked up at him. Why are you doing this, Sam? You're risking everything for a stranger. Sam busied himself with hanging up his coat. Maybe I'm tired of watching Blackwood destroy lives. It's more than that, she pressed. He turned to face her. Maybe I see something worth saving. Their eyes locked, and the small cabin suddenly felt even smaller. Sam cleared his throat and stepped outside, claiming he needed to check the horses. That night, as they sat before the fire, Sophia spoke of her childhood in Boston, her decision to head west to teach, and the freedom she'd found in the open spaces of Colorado before Blackwood had taken it all away. I keep thinking about what I'd do if I could clear my name, she said softly. I miss teaching, miss having a place to belong. You could belong here, Sam said before he could stop himself. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning neither was ready to acknowledge. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into a month. Redemption Creek grew accustomed to seeing Sam Hayes ride in for supplies more frequently than before, though no one thought much of it. He'd always been a solitary man, keeping to himself, doing odd jobs when money ran low, but otherwise staying clear of town business. Sheriff Tanner approached him one afternoon as he was loading supplies onto his horse. Ain't seen you around the saloon lately, Hayes. Finding entertainment elsewhere. The sheriff's tone carried insinuation. Just been busy with the cabin, Sam replied evenly. Winter's coming. Heard talk of a woman being seen up near your place. Wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? Sam's hand casually moved closer to his holster. Folks see all sorts of things in these hills, Sheriff. Ghosts, mostly. Just remember, harboring a fugitive is a crime. So is taking bribes from Harlan Blackwood, Sam countered quietly. The sheriff's face darkened. Careful, Hayes. Even a man with your reputation can find himself on the wrong end of a rope. As Sam rode back to the cabin, worry gnawed at him. Their time was running out. Word would spread, and eventually, someone would connect the mysterious woman at his cabin with the fugitive Sophia Reid. When he returned, he found Sophia outside, chopping wood with surprising efficiency. She'd tied her dark hair back with a strip of leather, and her cheeks were flushed from exertion. She looked more alive, more present than the haunted woman he'd first encountered. "You're getting quite good at that," he said, dismounting. She split another log cleanly. "Turns out running for your life builds muscle." "We need to talk," Sam said, helping her stack the wood. "Sheriff's asking questions. Someone's seen you." Sophia's face fell. "I should go. I've put you at risk long enough." "No," Sam said firmly. "Running's not the answer, not anymore." "What choice do I have?" Sam took a deep breath. "Marry me." Sophia nearly dropped the axe. "What? Hear me out. If you're Mrs. Hayes, folks will stop asking questions. You'll have a new name, a new identity. We can say you're from up north, that we married quietly because of your family's objections." "Sam, you can't be serious." "I'm deadly serious. It would be a marriage of convenience, nothing more, but it would keep you safe." She studied his face. "And when Blackwood's men eventually find me?" "What then? They'll kill you too. Let me worry about Blackwood." There was something in his voice, a darkness she hadn't heard before. "I've been waiting for a reason to settle that score." That night, Sophia barely slept, turning Sam's proposal over in her mind. It was practical, logical even. But something about it left her unsettled. Not because she objected to being tied to Sam if she was honest with herself. That thought had crossed her mind more than once in the past weeks. No. What troubled her was the idea of dragging him further into her troubles. By morning, she'd made her decision. She found Sam at the corral working with a young colt. "Yes," she said simply. He turned, brushing dust from his hands. "Yes, I'll marry you, but I have conditions." A smile tugged at his lips. "I would expect nothing less. First, we find a way to clear my name. I won't live in hiding forever." He nodded. "Agreed." "Second, we're honest with each other, always. No secrets." "That might be harder than clearing your name," he said, his expression growing serious. "We all have things we'd rather keep buried." "I'm not asking for your past, Sam, just your truth from this moment forward." He considered this, then nodded again. "Fair enough. Any other conditions?" Sophia hesitated. "If the time comes when you want more than a marriage of convenience, you'll tell me." Something flashed in his eyes, surprise, perhaps, or something deeper. "That goes both ways." They were married 3 days later by a circuit preacher who didn't ask questions when Sam pressed extra money into his hand. The ceremony was brief, the words ancient and binding. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Sam hesitated only a moment before leaning down to place a gentle kiss on Sophia's lips. It was their first, and though it lasted only seconds, it left them both shaken. That night, Sam insisted on maintaining his bedroll by the fire despite Sophia's practical arguments about the bed being large enough for both of them if they were careful. "A deal's a deal," he said firmly. "This is a marriage of convenience." "It's also freezing," she countered. "And I don't fancy explaining to the doctor why my husband has pneumonia." In the end, practicality won out. They shared the bed with a line of pillows between them, both lying rigidly on their respective sides, acutely aware of the other's presence. Word of Sam's sudden marriage spread through Redemption Creek like wildfire. When they finally ventured into town together 2 weeks later, Sophia could feel the stares and hear the whispers. "Don't mind them," Sam murmured as they walked toward the general store. "Small towns run on gossip." "They're laughing at you," she observed, noticing the smirks and amused glances directed at Sam. The fearsome sunset haze tamed by a woman. "Let them laugh," he said, placing his hand at the small of her back in a gesture that felt both protective and possessive. "I know what I'm getting." Inside the store, Mrs. Peterson, the owner's wife, made little effort to hide her curiosity. "So, you're the mystery bride," she said, looking Sophia up and down. "Where did Sam find you? We were starting to think he'd never settle down." "Up north," Sophia replied with the practiced story. "My family has a small farm near the Montana border." "Is that so? And they just let you ride off with a man like Hayes?" "My family doesn't dictate my choices," Sophia said firmly. Mrs. Peterson sniffed disapprovingly. "Well, I hope you know what you're getting into, dear. Sam Hayes has quite a reputation. They say he's killed more men than Winter." "People say a lot of things, Mrs. Peterson," Sam interjected, placing their purchases on the counter. "Most of them aren't worth repeating." As winter settled over the mountains, Sam and Sophia fell into a comfortable routine. They worked side by side during the day, hunting, repairing the cabin, preparing for the harsh months ahead. At night, they read by the fire, sometimes aloud to each other, discussing ideas and sharing stories. The line of pillows between them in bed gradually disappeared, though they maintained a respectful distance. One evening, as snow fell heavily outside, Sophia asked the question that had been on her mind for months. "What happened between you and Blackwood?" Sam was silent for so long she thought he might not answer. Finally, he set down his book. "I worked for him once, years ago, was young and needed the money, didn't ask questions about what he was doing, buying up land, forcing people out." He stared into the fire. "There was a family, the Sullivans, good people with a small ranch Blackwood wanted. When they refused to sell, he sent me and some others to convince them." Sophia remained silent, giving him space to continue. "I thought we were just going to scare them a bit, but the others, they went too far. Burned the barn with the livestock inside. When Mr. Sullivan came out with a shotgun, they shot him down, right in front of his wife and daughter." Sam's voice hardened. "I tried to stop them, but I was too late. The girl couldn't have been more than 12. What did you do?" "I turned on Blackwood's men, killed 2 of them before the others ran. Took Mrs. Sullivan and her daughter to safety, then went after Blackwood." His hand unconsciously touched a scar on his arm. "I didn't succeed. He had too many men, too much influence. Been waiting for another chance ever since." Sophia moved closer, taking his hand. "Is that why you helped me? Because I'm another of Blackwood's victims?" Sam looked at her, his eyes intense. "At first, maybe, but now it's because you're you, Sophia." The admission hung between them, changing something fundamental in their relationship. That night, when they went to bed, Sophia found herself drifting closer to Sam's warmth, and he didn't pull away. As winter deepened, so did their bond. The pretense of convenience gradually gave way to genuine affection, expressed in small touches, in the way Sam's eyes followed Sophia as she moved about the cabin, in how she smiled when he returned from checking his trap lines. Their first real kiss came during a blizzard that howled around the cabin like a living thing. They'd been melting snow for water when the wind had blown out their lantern, plunging them into darkness save for the fire's glow. Sam had reached for her at the same moment she'd stepped toward him, and suddenly they were in each other's arms, lips meeting with a hunger neither had acknowledged until that moment. "This isn't convenience anymore, is it?" Sophia whispered when they finally broke apart. "No," Sam admitted, his voice rough. "It hasn't been for some time." That night, they truly became husband and wife, discovering each other with tender exploration and growing passion that left them both breathless and changed. Afterward, as Sophia lay in the circle of Sam's arms, she felt a peace she hadn't known since before Blackwood had entered her life. "I love you," she said simply, the words feeling right and true. Sam's arms tightened around her. "And I love you. God help me, I do. With spring's arrival came renewed danger. The mountain passes cleared, bringing riders from the south, including two men Sophia recognized as Blackwood's hired guns. "They're in town," Sam told her one evening, returning from selling furs. "Asking questions about new arrivals, especially women." Sophia felt the familiar fear return. "They'll find me eventually." "No," Sam said firmly. "We're done running. It's time to end this." Over the following days, they formulated a plan. Sam had maintained correspondence with the Sullivans, who had relocated to Denver. Mrs. Sullivan's brother was a lawyer with connections to the territorial governor. If they could get evidence of Blackwood's corruption and frame up of Sophia, they might be able to clear her name. "I need to go to Denver," Sam said. "Meet with Sullivan's brother-in-law, get the legal wheels turning." "I'm coming with you," Sophia insisted. "It's too dangerous. More dangerous than staying here alone with Blackwood's men sniffing around." She shook her head. "We're in this together now, Sam. Where you go, I go." He couldn't argue with her logic, nor did he truly want to. Having Sophia at his side had become as natural as breathing. They left for Denver the next morning, traveling carefully, avoiding main roads. It took them 10 days to reach the city, and another 3 to locate Sullivan's brother-in-law, a shrewd attorney named James Thornton. Thornton listened to their story with growing interest. "Blackwood's been accumulating enemies," he confirmed. "The governor's received complaints about his methods, but without solid evidence." "What would you need?" Sophia asked. "Witnesses. Documentation of the false charges. Proof of bribery." Thornton leaned forward. "There's a federal marshal investigating railroad land grabs. If we could connect Blackwood to your case, it might be enough." They spent 2 weeks in Denver, gathering information, connecting with others who had suffered at Blackwood's hands. Slowly, a case began to build. But just as they were making progress, disaster struck. Sam returned to their hotel room one evening to find it ransacked and Sophia gone. On the bed lay a single piece of paper with a message. "Come alone to the old Sullivan mine. Midnight, or she dies." Cold fury washed over Sam. He'd been careless, too focused on building their case to notice they were being followed. Now Sophia was paying the price. He didn't consider going to the authorities. Blackwood had too many men on his payroll. Instead, he gathered his weapons and rode through the night, pushing his horse to its limits to reach Redemption Creek by midnight. The old Sullivan mine was dark and still when he arrived. Sam approached cautiously, every sense alert for ambush. "That's far enough, Hayes," called a familiar voice. Sheriff Tanner stepped from the shadows, his revolver trained on Sam. "Hands where I can see them." Sam complied slowly. "Where is she, your fugitive bride?" "Inside. Blackwood's been looking forward to meeting her. If he's harmed her, you'll what?" Tanner laughed. "You're outnumbered, Hayes. Blackwood's got 6 men in there besides himself. You're good, but not that good." Sam's mind raced, calculating odds, looking for options. "Let me see her." Tanner considered, then nodded. "Why not? Let you say goodbye before Blackwood hangs her for that stagecoach robbery." Inside the abandoned mine, lanterns illuminated a grim scene. Sophia stood with her hands bound, a bruise darkening her cheek, but her eyes flashed with defiance rather than fear. Around her stood Blackwood's men, and seated on an upturned crate was Harlan Blackwood himself, a well-dressed man in his 50s with cold eyes and a politician's smile. "The famous Sunset, Hayes," Blackwood said, rising. "I've been looking forward to finishing our business." "Let her go," Sam said, his voice deadly calm. "Your quarrels with me—" "Oh, I disagree. Mrs. Reid, or should I say Mrs. Hayes now, has caused me considerable inconvenience." Blackwood approached Sophia, running a finger along her jaw. "Though I can see why you married her. Always did have an eye for beauty." Sophia jerked her head away from his touch. Don't flatter yourself, Blackwood. I know what you are. Blackwood's smile tightened. What I am, my dear, is a businessman, and you've been very bad for business. Enough talk, Sam interrupted. What do you want? Want? I have everything I want. Blackwood gestured around. You walked right into my trap, just as I knew you would. Now I can eliminate both of you and end this irritating chapter. You'll never get away with killing us, Sophia said. We've been to Denver. People know about your crimes. Something flickered in Blackwood's eyes, uncertainty, perhaps, or concern. What people? Federal marshals, Sam said, seizing the opening. We've given them everything: witness statements, financial records showing your bribes, evidence of the false charges against Sophia. You're bluffing. Am I? Why do you think we went to Denver? It wasn't for the scenery. Doubt crept across Blackwood's face, but quickly hardened into resolve. It doesn't matter. 2 more bodies in an abandoned mine won't raise questions. This territory knows how dangerous mining accidents can be. He nodded to his men. Kill Hayes first. I want him to watch her die. What happened next occurred so quickly that later, witnesses would disagree on the sequence of events. As Blackwood's men reached for their guns, Sophia suddenly dropped to the ground, rolling toward a support beam despite her bound hands. In the same instant, Sam drew and fired in one fluid motion, hitting the lantern above Blackwood's head. The mine plunged into darkness, save for the shower of sparks and burning oil that rained down. Gunfire erupted, wild, panicked shots that ricocheted off stone walls. Sam dove for cover, firing methodically at muzzle flashes, counting shots, conserving ammunition. Someone screamed in pain. Another man cursed. Through the chaos, Sam worked his way toward where he'd last seen Sophia, praying she'd stayed down, out of the line of fire. A figure lunged at him from the darkness: Sheriff Tanner, recognition coming a second before Sam's bullet caught him in the chest. The sheriff crumpled without a sound. Sophia, Sam called when the gunfire momentarily ceased. Here. Her voice came from near the mine entrance, stronger than he'd dared hope. Sam moved toward her, only to be tackled from behind. He hit the ground hard, his gun skittering away. Rolling, he found himself face to face with Harlan Blackwood, the businessman's refined facade gone, replaced by murderous rage. You've ruined everything, Blackwood snarled, hands closing around Sam's throat. Sam fought for breath, clawing at Blackwood's grip, black spots dancing at the edges of his vision. Just as consciousness began to fade, a deafening shot rang out. Blackwood's eyes widened in surprise, his hands loosening as he slumped forward. Standing in the mine entrance, illuminated by moonlight, was Sophia. She held Sam's dropped revolver in her still-bound hands, smoke curling from the barrel. "No one touches my husband," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her arms. The remaining gunmen, seeing their employer dead and half their number down, quickly surrendered. By dawn, the survivors were locked in Redemption Creek's jail, and word of the night's events had spread throughout the town. Sophia's shot had done more than kill Blackwood, it had saved the entire town. For years, Redemption Creek had suffered under Blackwood's corrupt influence. Businesses extorted, families threatened, justice perverted. With his death and the evidence Sam and Sophia had gathered, the town had a chance at a new beginning. The federal marshal arrived 3 days later, bringing with him news that the charges against Sophia had been officially dropped. Witness testimony and documents recovered from Blackwood's office had confirmed what they already knew: she had been framed to pressure her into selling her land. "You're free," Sam told her as they stood on the porch of the sheriff's office, the marshal's paperwork clutched in her hands. "You can go anywhere, do anything now." Sophia looked up at him, her green eyes clear and certain. "I'm exactly where I want to be." The townspeople of Redemption Creek, who had once whispered and laughed behind Sam's back about his mysterious bride, now treated Sophia with a mixture of awe and gratitude. The woman who had saved their town with a single, perfect shot had earned their respect. When the town council approached Sam about taking over as sheriff, he was hesitant. "I'm not a lawman," he protested. "You're a man who stands for what's right," Councilman Parker insisted. "That's what we need now." It was Sophia who convinced him to accept. "This could be our home, Sam. A real one, not just a hiding place." That summer, they moved from the isolated cabin into the sheriff's quarters behind the jail. Sophia reopened the town's long-abandoned schoolhouse, filling it with books and eager young minds. The people who had once laughed at Sam for marrying a fugitive now pointed to them as examples of what courage and determination could accomplish. On their first anniversary, Sam took Sophia back to the cabin where their story had truly begun. They spent the day fishing in the stream and the evening on the porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. "Any regrets?" Sam asked as they sat together on the old wooden swing he'd built. Sophia leaned her head against his shoulder. "Only that I didn't meet you sooner." "We met exactly when we were supposed to," he said, kissing the top of her head. "Not a day before or after." She smiled up at him. "The mysterious ways of sunset haze. Not so mysterious anymore. You know all my secrets now." "Do I?" There was a teasing light in her eyes. "I think you still have one or two hidden away. Such as what you've been keeping in that locked drawer in your desk for the past month." Sam raised an eyebrow, impressed despite himself. "Been snooping, have you?" "Observing," she corrected. "It's what teachers do." With a sigh of mock resignation, Sam reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet pouch. "Was going to save this for later, but since you're so observant." Inside was a gold ring set with a small emerald that caught the fading light. "Our wedding was rushed," he explained. "You never got a proper ring." Tears welled in Sophia's eyes as he slipped it onto her finger, a perfect fit. "It's beautiful. Like you," he said simply. "I may not be good with fancy words, Sophia, but I want you to know marrying you, even when it started as convenience, was the best decision I ever made." She cupped his face in her hands. "I love you, Samuel Hayes, with all that I am." Their kiss was tender at first, then deepening with the passion that had only grown stronger through their trials and triumphs. As twilight settled over the mountain, they made love in the cabin that had witnessed their journey from strangers to saviors to soulmates. Winter came again, and with it, news that gladdened their hearts. Sophia was with child, due in late spring. The town celebrated almost as enthusiastically as Sam, who took to his new impending role of father with the same quiet determination he brought to everything. "Girl or boy?" asked Mrs. Peterson, who had become one of Sophia's staunchest friends, the earlier suspicion long forgotten. "Doesn't matter," Sam answered before Sophia could speak. "Long as the child has its mother's aim and brains." "And its father's heart," Sophia added, squeezing his hand. Their daughter, Sarah, was born on a perfect May morning in 1880, with her mother's green eyes and a tuft of hair that promised to be as auburn as her father's. Sam, who had faced gunfighters without flinching, wept openly when the midwife placed the tiny bundle in his arms. "Never thought I'd have this," he confessed to Sophia later as they marveled at their sleeping child. "A family, a home, you gave me that. We gave it to each other," she corrected gently. "And now to her." As Sarah grew, so did Redemption Creek. The railroad that Blackwood had schemed for arrived anyway, but on the town's terms, bringing new opportunities without destroying what made the community special. Sam served as sheriff for 8 years, bringing a justice to the region that was firm but fair, earning a reputation that extended far beyond their small corner of the territory. Sophia's school flourished, eventually expanding to include a proper library that became the pride of the county. When Arizona achieved statehood in 1912, Sarah Hayes Reid, by then a respected attorney who had followed in the footsteps of James Thornton, was among those who helped draft the state constitution. On quiet evenings, Sam and Sophia would still sometimes ride up to their old cabin, which they maintained as a retreat from town life. There, they would sit on the porch, watching the sunset together, hands clasped as they had been through decades of challenges and joys. "They still tell the story, you know," Sam said on one such evening, his hair now more silver than auburn but his eyes still sharp. "About the fugitive who saved the town with one shot. And the cowboy brave enough to marry her," Sophia added, the lines around her eyes deepening as she smiled. "Even when they all laughed at him. Best risk I ever took," he said, lifting her hand to his lips. "Would do it all again in a heartbeat. Even the part where Blackwood nearly killed you, even that. It brought us here, didn't it?" As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in the colors that had given Sam his nickname so many years ago, they shared a kiss as sweet and true as their first. Their story of a man who defied convention to protect a woman he barely knew, and a woman whose courage saved not just a town, but the heart of the man she loved, would be told in Redemption Creek for generations to come. Not as a legend or a tall tale, but as proof that sometimes the greatest acts of heroism begin with the simplest acts of faith, and that true love, once found, can withstand any challenge, outlast any storm, and transform not just two lives, but an entire world.